Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Healthy Hormones little mini course for you guys. I am Dr. Callie.
And I'm Dr. Macy.
We have got some good things coming for you guys today, just about understanding how stress can really affect our hormones and our cycles as women, and then also things that you guys can do at home to just take some good action steps, and then things that we can go beyond, like action steps at home. So first up, just a quick introduction if you don't already know me. I am Dr. Callie, and I am here, your Peds and Puppies chiropractor. So I'm really passionate about, you guessed it, just healthy kids and healthy pets. And so with that comes healthy parents and just like functioning females. So I'm really excited to dive into this stuff today because it's one of the things that we see so often in practice.
And I'm Dr. Macy. I'm a chiropractor that loves to learn all things hormone and nutrition. And I'm here along with Dr. Callie to help everyone understand the female cycle and how hormone irregularities can affect how you feel and how your body functions.
You guys might not know this, but Dr. Macy is really big with like exercise and weightlifting and just really into fitness. So a lot of times we see fitness related, I don't know, in the industry, I guess, just a lot of hormonal issues and cycle imbalances. So it's really prominent in both of the things that we do. So again, we're just really excited to share some of the information that we have and put it in a convenient way for you guys. So again, those objectives for you. So the first thing that we're going to do is cover the basics so you guys can just start to get an understanding of, how does the body function? How is it supposed to function? Because sometimes what we found, at least in our practice, is that people think that things are normal but they're not. They're just really, really common. So we want to make sure that we can just kind of really reiterate what the function of the body is. Cycle basics. So we're going to give you a really quick deep dive into our cycle. Action steps that you guys can do at home, a little bit more about Dutch testing, which is the testing that we do here in our office for hormones. And then we've got some resources for you guys, again, so you guys can do some of this stuff at home. All right, Health 101.
Okay, so we both really love this quote, so I'll just give it a read. The function of the nervous system is to perceive the environment and to coordinate the behavior of all other cells. And so this is just really important and kind of gives an overarching view that our bodies should work well and function to the best of its ability without having kind of any bumps in the road. So we want to just educate everyone and make sure that everyone is experiencing the best life that they can possibly be experiencing.
Yeah. And what that really breaks down to is that our nervous system is the master controller of everything. And that means that the body can heal itself. Like, you guys are your best doctors as long as your body is functioning at its optimal level. So that's what we really want to help you guys do, is just allow your body to do what it's supposed to do, which is heal and adapt and grow. So that way you guys can live your best lives. What happens though is we start to see something that we just call the triad of health, where our health starts to break down through three things. So physical stress, chemical stress, and emotional stress. Physical stress is things that you might be doing repetitively. So think about like sitting at your work in your desk job. Maybe it's something you do every single day. Maybe you're a big runner and you're doing lots of physical stress on your body every day. Chemical stress could be things that we're putting into our body, or lotions, soaps, shampoos, anything that we're putting on our skin. I like to think about this one as anything that our body has to really process or filter out. So again, it could be medications, it could be toothpaste, it could be whatever. And then the last one is just emotional stressors. So those things include stress at home, work, life, school, with your kiddos, whatever it may be, and just like present and past experiences, and with our families too. So we are exposed to these stressors every single day. So there is no person on this earth who can literally just like wave a magic wand and everything is gone. Like, that's just not real life. So our job as chiropractors is to help you feel and function better. So again, we can't remove those stressors for you, but we can help your nervous system function better and process through those a lot better. So again, just being more cognizant of the things that could be causing stress in our life on a daily basis is going to make a big world of difference. So how do these stressors really start to affect our cycle as females, and what can we start to see when these stressors overtake our nervous system's ability to adapt, and then we start to see those symptoms? So here is the cycle basics.
Yes. So your cycle should look, it's individualized to you. It usually runs anywhere from 28 to 32 days. I know that for myself speaking, I usually run just a little bit more than 32 days, but it's pretty on average with about 35 days. So everyone's different. No one has to be, spot on with a 30-day cycle. So it starts with day 1, and that's your first day of bleeding. So you usually bleed anywhere from 1 to 5. Sometimes women have more than 5 days of bleeding, and that's just shedding the uterine lining. The next couple phases are the day 6 to day 10, roughly, which is prepping for ovulation. So you start to build up that lining again so that when an egg drops from your ovary, it can stick to that lining and then be fertilized by sperm. Day 11 to day 19 is where you're ovulating. So the egg can drop from your ovary at any point during that time. And that is the only time during your cycle that you have the chance of getting pregnant. The other days in your cycle, if you're not ovulating, you cannot get pregnant. Day 20 to day 28 is the prepping for that implantation. So it's prepping for that sperm to come in and fertilize that egg and then stick to that uterine lining. And that's when the baby will start to grow if that fertilization does happen.
No, does anyone else remember from like high school where they were like, you're going to get pregnant all the time? And it's like, wait, what?
Scare you for absolutely no reason.
Yes. I remember just being like, oh my God, I'm going to get pregnant doing whatever. And it's like, no, like it's like a miracle to get pregnant because everything has to line up so perfectly.
Yeah.
And so it's just really interesting of like how many women don't know that or like don't understand when they are ovulating or like what's happening. So that's why we really wanted to break this down. So again, in our menstrual cycle, we have 2 different phases. So we've got our ovarian cycle. So that's with the eggs. Remember that egg is coming, it's dropping down. We've got that cycle. That cycle is broken down into 2 things. So we have pre-ovulation, so before that egg drops, and then post-ovulation, so after that egg has been released. And then the second part of our cycle is our uterine cycle. So again, we've got our uterus that likes to hold that cell and make a really nice comfy home for this baby. So that's another place. We've got 2 cycles kind of going in at the same time. Again, we break that into a pre-ovulation phase and then a post-ovulation phase as well. So within those phases, there's the follicular phase, the luteal phase, period, proliferative phase, and then the secretory phase. So we've got lots of things going and lots of things at play, which is why it can get so confusing. But basic thing that we're going to break down for you is just that you've got two cycles within our menstrual cycle, and think of those cycles pre and post ovulation.
And like Dr. Callie said, obviously these, our cycles are very confusing and it takes a lot to understand it. It takes a lot of learning. It takes a lot of research, and understanding your own cycle is so important. And that's why tracking things like your ovulation and where your LH is changing and rising and falling throughout your phase is so important, because that's when you know that, you can conceive a baby, or you don't have to worry about conceiving because you're not ovulating. And that's why we're here to educate you so that you can understand how your body's feeling, how your body's functioning. And so these graphs just kind of go through what Dr. Callie just explained with the pre and post ovulation and the follicular phase with the luteal phase, and just kind of gives you a visualization on how those are, kind of ebbing and flowing, and how the hormones that are at the bottom with the lines kind of show where things are getting to be a little bit higher during your period and where things are getting to be a little bit lower throughout that whole cycle.
Yes. And we'll talk about it here in a second, but if we look at those hormones on the bottom, so like the blue line, for example, is our estrogen. So see how it peaks at the end there of that, in that follicular phase, pre-ovulation. And then it kind of comes down into that luteal phase after ovulation. But big thing to remember is when we have symptoms from our cycle, maybe it's, weight gain, irritability, anxiety, things like that. That is where we're seeing these issues, is that there's a dysfunction within our hormones of our cycles. So maybe we have that estrogen is high all the time. Or maybe it's spiking in our luteal phase versus our, or maybe it's not spiking at all.
Right.
And so it's just really nice to see where these hormones are supposed to be. So you can kind of have a general idea of like what is actually supposed to be going on. And then that sometimes is helpful for when we realize when things are not going right.
Yeah, exactly.
Next one too is just the uterine cycle. So that first one Macy went over was that ovarian cycle. So again, that egg, uterine is we're looking at the actual uterus. So again, we're breaking it into, we've got the period cycle, we've got that proliferative phase, so where it's starting to build that lining back up. And then the secretory phase is when it starts to say like, oh, we actually don't need any of this extra lining or this extra tissue. We're just going to go ahead and shed that. And so it's just, again, looking at these hormones at the bottom of that FSH, which is a follicle stimulating hormone, to help stimulate that follicle to make sure that it's really nice and juicy so that sperm can kind of come in. Estrogens, the luteinizing hormone, and then the progesterone as well. So
yes,
that's that.
So these are just kind of the heavy hitters with hormones and the ones that we want to focus on, because these are the 4 that can really change how your body is feeling and how it's functioning and how you're feeling in general throughout your entire cycle. So we are going to be talking about the highs and lows of what these kind of, do to your body and change your symptomatology.
Mm-hmm. And the best way that we can start to understand, so like if you're sitting here and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't even know how to track or how to understand what my estrogen's at or my progesterone, like no one's ever told me these things, like you are not alone. Literally no one tells anyone this. Like that is not, remember, like what we learned in high school was like, don't get pregnant. Like if you have sex, you're going to have pregnant. It's like, oh my gosh, no. So some of the things that we like to do for modern technology that can start to give us some insights. So these are not like clinical tests by any means. So they're not going to give you like a, like a lab value of like, hey, your estrogen's high or your estrogen's not metabolizing appropriately, but they're going to give us some clues and just insights into figuring out like, maybe we do have some high estrogen, or maybe there is a dysfunction within our hormones based off of our tracking. So some of our favorite ones are Flow, Clue, Daisy, which is just a temperature that you take in the morning, your basal metabolic temperature. Ovulation strips, we oftentimes recommend these to our patients who aren't sure if they're ovulating or their cycles are super, super long. Those can be just bought at any sort of like Walgreens, yes, Walmart, things like that. And then Macy, I'll let Macy talk about natural cycles. That's the one that she uses. I really like Flow and Clue, but
yes. So natural cycles is kind of like Daisy, where you do take your temperature. So you're supposed to track it every morning at the same time, or like within a 2-hour window, just so that you're getting the most accurate reading with that basal metabolic temperature. And what the basal metabolic temperature does is it just tracks your temperature to 2 decimal points, I believe is what it is. And so it's just really helpful because when you ovulate, your temperature actually spikes, but it's a very small amount that only tracking it with those extra decimal points will catch. And so though you plug that into the app, and with the algorithms that they use, they're able to kind of track where you are at within your cycle and give you a pretty good predicted value of, when you're ovulating, when your period should start. And you're also able to, I believe in most of these apps, track how you're feeling, mm-hmm, and symptoms and stuff like that, and kind of explain to the app what you're experiencing. And they can kind of give you a, personalized view on your cycle and how it's working. And a lot of these can be used in conjunction with each other. Like, doing any of the temperature trackings with like ovulation strips is really, really good. Like I know Natural Cycles will tell you with the ovulation strips, you check LH. And so they'll tell you like now is probably a good time to do the LH testing to see if you're ovulating.
Yeah. I feel like the more data you can get, the better.
Oh yeah.
It's not going to hurt by any means, especially when we've been dealing with a dysfunction for a really long time. So oftentimes too, like Macy and I see in practice all the time, is that we have these teenage girls who have been on birth control for a very, very long time. So we have had an artificial cycle, right? So if we're introducing something like a birth control, it's mimicking our natural cycle in order to control the bleed or to control our hormones in that time. But what happens is it just kind of suppresses our natural hormones. So that way, when we come off of birth control, we're not always regulated correctly, right? Like we're not always functioning how we should because our body's been shut off for so long. So we oftentimes recommend just getting as much information as possible because chances are like we're going to need it.
Oh yeah. And it does take, once you do come off of a hormonal birth control situation, whether you're taking the pill or had an IUD or whatever it may be, it takes time for your body to re-regulate itself to get back to those natural hormones and using them properly and how they should be used, where you're, feeling how you should feel and feeling good throughout your whole cycle. So
I think too, like that's probably an important thing we probably should have started with. Like we've both had, like I was on a hormonal birth control for a long time. I also was on an IUD for a long time, to the point where I didn't get a period for like 6 years. And I thought, oh, this is so great, right? Like this is awesome.
Yep.
And then I started learning more about, in chiropractic school, we learn all the things about like how our body should function and how these things affect our hormones. It took me almost 2 years to get my cycle back. And I still I do so many things in order to get my cycle to where it is. So a lot of these things that we do are things that we have tried and tested for ourselves that have had great success. So I love, like, Flow is my favorite one. Clue is really fun because it's like a little weather app, but it's like 90% chance of like grumpiness today or like ovulation. You're like, oh, okay, cool. Another thing that we can do just to get more information is pay attention to the things that create inflammation in our systems. So what does that look like? It could be things like our lifestyle that's creating, higher anxiety, high stress. Maybe we're not sleeping great, low libido, bloating, fatigue. Maybe you notice that like every time you eat a specific food or a meal, you just feel so tired or you feel bloated, or maybe you're going to the bathroom more frequently than you thought. It could also be a medication that we're taking consistently. So a few slides ago, we talked about birth control. And one of the things that birth control does is depletes our B vitamins and then also some of our essential vitamins and minerals. So that means that maybe we're experiencing more depression. Maybe we're experiencing some more anxiety because we're literally not getting the things that we need because this medication is depleting some of those essential things. So for us, that means that we need to have our patients on a prenatal or a multivitamin, and then definitely a B complex just to help restore some of those basic things. But all of this is just to say that inflammation is such a huge driver for some of the symptoms that we may be seeing, which is why we want you guys to, number one, just know what's driving these symptoms to occur. And then also what else you guys can do about it at home.
Yes. So let's specifically dive into inflammation and what it does to your body and how it can affect the way we feel and function each and every day. So inflammation does a lot of things to your body. It can make you feel, like Dr. Callie just said, bloated, fatigued, have all those negative symptoms that we really don't want to experience on a daily basis. And so there's a lot of different things that we can do to combat that inflammation and hopefully see changes within our body. And whether that, ends up being dealing with the physical, the chemical, or emotional stress that's within your system, we can definitely do some things to take care of that.
Yeah, more specifically in our office, what we do is we adjust patients. So as chiropractors, that's what we do. We adjust patients to remove interference on our nervous systems. So we just target the majority of the nerves in your nervous system. But one of the biggest nerves that we see actually is called the vagus nerve. And that nerve has a big impact on inflammation symptoms that you might be experiencing throughout your system. So again, that vagus nerve just runs through our atlas. It's called the wandering nerve. It travels all throughout our body and provides life to literally like all of our organs, like our lungs, our heart, our stomach, intestines, bladder, and of course, our reproductive organs. So when we get inflammation on that specific nerve, it can have a hard time providing like accurate information back to the brain and to those organs and those tissues. Basically just meaning that we're not functioning at our best. We are functioning in an inflamed state. So how we can help you guys with that is just to help with that nervous system inflammation, of course, with adjustments, but there's lots of things that you guys can do at home. So Macy's going to kind of go into that of like, yes, as chiropractors, we can help you decrease inflammation on your system through adjustments, but it's one of those things where like, if we keep adjusting you over and over and over again, but you're still living in like a fish bowl that's like, super dirty and you're not getting sunlight or adequate food and things like that, like you're still a fish that's swimming in dirty water, if that makes sense. So we just want to help you, clean out your tank a little bit.
Yes. So it kind of goes along. I like the saying, like, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink type situation. So we're getting you to that water. We're helping your body function from our perspective with adjustments and everything like that. But there are extra steps that you can take and do on your own that will really help you, push yourself over that hill and get you to where you want and get yourself feeling better.
Yeah. Feeling and functioning way better.
Yes. So the elimination diet, it's actually a big player in how we can affect the inflammation in our body and hopefully have some reduction and see some, good quality benefits from this diet. So I really want to use the word diet very limited because I don't think that it's a diet at all.
No, it's totally a lifestyle thing of like, remember, this is stuff that you're putting into your body every single day. So are we going to do things that fuel our body or things that hurt our body?
Right. So it's not a calorie restriction. You're not trying to, eat 1,000 calories a day so that you're losing a bunch of weight. It's really to determine what types of foods specifically are causing you to have negative symptoms and foods that really play into the inflammation in your body and get rid of those and figure out which ones are really triggering those negative symptoms. And so what we like to do is we eliminate a few of like those big playing foods. So a lot of the big things are dairy, and then grains and gluten that really affect the inflammation in your body. So what we do is we will take those out of your diet for 3 weeks. See how you feel, record your symptoms, kind of see how your body is reacting to eliminating those types of foods from your body. And after those 3 weeks, we slowly put them back into your diet to see which ones are causing you the negative symptoms so that we can eliminate them permanently and reduce that inflammation for the long term, which is really beneficial, obviously. Those foods will, really trigger things like bad bacteria and chemicals and yeast that can leak from the gut because they're causing so many negative reactions within like your stomach and intestinal lining that it's causing all that inflammation and extra, bloat and fatigue and everything in your body. So we really like to just get rid of those things and hopefully help to, combat that inflammation. And so we will, we can always answer questions and walk you through that elimination diet and help you really understand it and hopefully help you see great benefits from it.
Yeah, totally. Other things that we can do at home is what we're going to cover in this next step of just like, hey, letting you guys make some decisions at home, because again, like we are here to help you in any perspective. So for some people, like an elimination diet might seem scary or, hard to do. Okay, let's just start with the big players. Let's just maybe take out dairy and gluten, or maybe let's just like start walking or like doing journaling, like food journaling, things like that. So we just have a couple of action steps that you guys can do at home, because you just have to start. Like that's the hardest part, I think, is just starting.
Yes.
So there's lots of things you can do at home just to help, balance your hormones, reduce your stress, and decrease that inflammation. So let's go ahead and get into those. Nourishing diet. So eating a diet that has lots and lots and lots of healthy fats from fishes is great. Omega-3s, those proteins, fermented foods. So anything we can do to help our gut. A lot of times when we see hormonal issues, we also see gut issues. So oftentimes that's something we tell people to add in all the time too, is just fermented foods, whether it's, a kimchi, a probiotic, a yogurt, you name it, just adding those things in. And then avoiding the diets that have a high processed or high sugar content, because again, those are the things that are going to cause extra inflammation. And it's really, really hard. Like we both, again, know from firsthand how hard it is when you're not feeling your best because your hormones are all over the place and you don't know what's wrong. But sometimes the best foods feel like, oh my gosh, I'm going to eat like this processed, I don't know,
ice cream
or like toaster strudel or some kind of crazy thing. Like, where you're like, but this feels good. And it's like, yeah, your body just doesn't know how to react to that. And then it's processing it wrong. So again, it's just going to create more inflammation. And then just drinking tons and tons of water. So we always tell our patients to try to drink half your body weight in ounces per day. I also really like to incorporate a gel water. So adding chia seeds, lemons, or limes, that's got that pectin in it, which is great. Apple cider vinegar, again, is going to have some of that probiotic stuff in there. And then bone broth is fantastic as well. So again, anything to help hydrate your system, aid with that detoxification system.
Yes. And so then along with diet, so eating those healthy foods and then drinking the water that you need to be, we also like to incorporate obviously a workout routine or exercise of some sort. And I feel like some people think that when we talk about exercise or recommend exercise to our patients, they're thinking that they need to be in the gym 5 days a week and getting 2 hours in the gym.
Yeah.
And that's totally not the case. Like going for a walk is
phenomenal.
It's so much better than people actually think that it is. And it does so much for you. And so obviously, like we have here on the slide, that exercise helps to increase sensitivity to insulin and decreases weight. So insulin is the driver between estrogen and testosterone, and exercise helps balance insulin and the insulin response. So like with this, going for a 30-minute walk after you have a meal is going to be so great and aid in all of the digestion of what you just ate.
Yeah, it's going to decrease those insulin spikes or glucose spikes, and it's going to be amazing.
Yes, and it'll make you feel so good. And then obviously chiropractic care. So getting those bones, joints, and muscles functioning as properly as they possibly can and making sure that your nervous system is functioning to its best ability will help with, keeping those hormones in balance and just aid in making sure that you're always feeling your best.
Yes. We always forget too that our nervous system, like we said in the beginning, controls and coordinates all the things in our body and responds to the environment. So whether that's our internal environment, whether that's our external environment, we are constantly adapting to stressors in our system. So if we think about the way that our hormones are released within our system, what's controlling or coordinating that? Our nervous system. So it's really, really important to be getting checked by a chiropractor and doing some of these things outside of the office too, of course. Just like sleep. So sleep and rest. So making sure that we prioritize sleep. These seem so silly, and I know that they seem so like obvious or, like, oh, this is so basic. But sleep is huge, especially if we are living in that state of fight or flight. We're probably not sleeping the best. So can we help to improve our stress by decreasing those toxic lifestyle things? For sure. But also just, staying off of your phone maybe an hour before bed, or settling or solidifying like a legit nighttime routine. I feel like people are always obsessed with like their morning routines. Yes. I'm like, we got to prioritize a nighttime routine too. And then the last one is just mindset. So just changing our attitude about the situation and just saying like, hey, like my body is so powerful and capable, and I was meant to, have this perfectly functioning cycle where I should have no pain during my cycle. I should have normal. I shouldn't have these acne breakouts. I shouldn't have this like extreme mood swing. And just having a really positive mindset of like, hey, I'm working towards my goal and I'm helping my body and nourishing my body and moving my body in a way that supports optimal health and healing. So again, Macy's going to just recap.
Yes. So breaking it all down, giving you guys a nice little summary. So prioritizing your nervous system. So getting adjusted, practicing that mindfulness, do things that fill your cup. So even if it's just one thing a day that you feel like you really enjoy to do it, because it's going to make you feel great and it's going to really help reduce the stress, like the stressors that we talked about here, the physical, the chemical, and the emotional stressors that are in your life. Fuel your body with good foods, lots of healthy fats, good proteins, like we have here talking about the at least eating 100 grams of protein a day. And then that 80-20 rule. So you don't have to completely, starve yourself of all the things that you like to eat, like the ice cream and whatever you choose to do. So
just be smarter about it.
Yes, just be mindful.
Move your body after you eat that ice cream, or like maybe you're only having ice cream twice a week instead of every single night. Right. Whatever it is.
Yep. And then working to increase your water intake. So we like to say half your body weight in ounces of water per day. And then move. Less intensity is okay. There's nothing wrong with going for a walk, doing yoga, meditating, breathing. But we also do like to incorporate some of that strength training and resistance training in there. But it really doesn't have to be more than 3 times a week for 30 minutes each time. Right. And that'll do you wonders.
Yep. I know when I started doing that, I wasn't even like, I was breaking a sweat, but not really. Like I felt like it wasn't, I thought it was going to be something different.
Yes.
And then once you start getting in the gym and you start doing it, it's like, oh, actually, this is not so bad.
Right.
So again, just talking about those critical hormones that we really, really, really like is cortisol, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. So those are the driving factors in our cycles too, that we really like to take a deeper look at and just make sure we know how our body's utilizing them, functioning with them, metabolizing them, or breaking them down. And this is what we can see when that doesn't happen correctly.
Yep. And so like we talked about in those graphs a couple of slides back, like they do ebb and flow. There's times where you have high estrogen and low progesterone, and that's how it's supposed to work. But when you have too many hormones that are, too low, or too many hormones that are too high, your body starts to experience symptoms that don't make you feel really great. And just kind of in general, some of those symptoms include, for any of your hormones that might be on the lower end, some hot flashes. You might not be able to sleep. You might not have the greatest sex drive. You might have some mood changes, just some, depression, anxiety, those added things. You might be, experiencing some joint pain, which is where chiropractic kind of comes into things. And you might be experiencing some acne, which, like Dr. Callie said, your cycle and your period should not be symptomatic. You should have a normal, feeling throughout your whole cycle. You shouldn't feel bloated. You shouldn't feel, crappy. You should feel decent throughout the whole time. And then some of those experiences and symptoms that you might have during times of higher hormone levels, and that might show irregularity, are things like weight gain or irregular periods. Maybe your period is lasting way too long and you're bleeding half of the month instead of just those 1 to 5 days, or it's super heavy the whole time instead of just the first day. You might have things like fatigue, and the bloating and the mood swings and added anxiety and depression. And those are the types of things that we like to address when patients come in and then say, you might have some irregularities throughout your whole cycle that we can take a look at and we can figure out what's going on. And we have the tools and resources to check on those for our patients and see what's happening and offer them some suggestions, and tips and tricks.
And I think a lot of our patients come in the very beginning and they're like, oh, well, I have PCOS and endometriosis. And I'm like,
and they're just okay with it.
And they're like, okay with it. Like they think it's a diagnosis that they have to live with forever.
Right.
And it's like, no. That's just telling us that there's a dysfunction. They've just labeled the dysfunction. So we need to figure out, why is your body creating all these cysts, or why is your body bleeding or creating all this inflammation? We need to figure out what's going on, because it's a hormonal issue at the end of the day. And it's a lifestyle issue of like, how can we help your body function and feel better? And so it always makes me so sad when people come in and they just think that because they have been labeled or diagnosed with PCOS or endo, that's the it for them. And like, they're never going to have a normal cycle. And like, that's what it is. And it's like, no, we can help you. There's so many things that we can do to help, not only decrease the symptoms, but improve that function. So some of the things that you guys can do at home, besides, things that are like, don't cost you anything, essentially. These are some things that we really like to add in, just as a basis. I mean, not only for most of our patients, but specifically people who are working with hormonal stuff. So a multivitamin or a prenatal, it's going to cover our bases, obviously, in case we do get pregnant for some reason. But also just because it's really good. It's got high quality nutrients and things like that in there. Our favorite brands are orthomolecular. So that's why we included those here. A vitamin D and a K2, also fantastic. And then bone broth and collagen.
Yep. We also talk about incorporating that bone broth, which is something that's, easily accessible. You can usually get bones from a farmer's market and do something on your own with any recipe that you can find online. Or there are really great like bone broth powders and stuff that we can recommend to patients as well. And so those just offer a very natural, high quality source of protein. And it also contains the main building blocks of protein, which is collagen. And collagen is very good for, healthy bone and joints, and hair, skin, nails is kind of the big heavy hitters with collagen. And it also helps to improve that gut, which, like we said, can have, can be affected by hormonal imbalance, and can also help reduce inflammation and also improve your skin elasticity. And then we also had here a supplement by Orthomolecular as well, and it's collagen. It's just a powder, and it's super great because it has that a lot of protein found in it that helps with, like we say here, the skin and connective tissues of the body. And it can help with, such as aging, lifestyle, genetics, any previous injuries that you have. It can help with that healing of that connective tissue, inflammation, and biomechanical instability that can lead to the breakdown of collagen. So it's very good for just kind of making sure that your body is functioning as best as it can and that your bones and joints are healthy.
Yeah. And it's a great option for like, if you're traveling or, you can't always have access to those whole foods. We always shoot for whole foods first, but if we can't get it from our diet, then we always recommend a supplement. So especially a whole foods based supplement. So, okay, guys, we are going to get into Dutch testing now. So again, we've talked about how our body functions, how it's supposed to function, some of the hormones that are playing in, and how our cycle is supposed to work and how it is. Things that you guys can do at home if you're experiencing some symptoms of high or low hormones. But if you want to get a little bit more specific, or if you've tried some of those things and you're like, I just really need like a professional's help. I need to understand what's going on because my primary just diagnosed me with endo or PCOS, or, has just said, oh, just go on a birth control. That's also one of my biggest pet peeves is when they just say, oh, we'll just put you in a birth control to like regulate your cycle. And I'm like, you're putting a Band-Aid over a fire hose, essentially. Like you're just making it so much worse in the long run. And so we want to make sure that you guys are getting the right information and we're actually testing those hormones for you. So the Dutch test is what we use here in our office. What Dutch stands for is just dried urine test for comprehensive hormones. So basically it is just the best test that we found that provides the most information when testing hormones. So symptoms can give us like very little information, because again, there's so many things that can be high or low that mimic each other. So we want to actually know what specifically in those hormones. So what is it? The estrogens, is it the progesterones, is it the testosterone or cortisol? Which ones are actually high? So we can get a real picture of what's going on. So it can just help us see where we have too high, too little, and just really narrow it down and see how your body's breaking it down.
Yes. So why is the Dutch test unique? So it is a precision test. So it offers a comprehensive look at your hormone levels, which provide insight that can help you identify the root cause of your hormonal imbalances. So, like Dr. Callie said, we look at, you can track all of your stuff in the apps that we suggested earlier, but you're never really going to know just by those whether you have high estrogen or low estrogen, or high testosterone or low testosterone. So this test really dives deep into what those hormonal imbalances may look like for you as an individual. And we, go through all the results and make sure that we can recommend certain things that'll help kind of alleviate those symptoms and hopefully take care of those problems. So it's convenient. Say goodbye to the inconvenience blood draws. So the Dutch test is a dried urine sample that is collected in your own home, and it's collected at certain times throughout the day. So it really,
like one day.
Yeah. Yep. Just one day, but you take a couple different samples throughout the day that really gets, a good comprehensive look at where your hormones are. So it's not just, like you would get your hormones tested if you go into the doctor and they take it at one time and it's after you've, eaten a big meal. So things are going to change after that. So this actually will look at, a waking and I think right before you go to bed, and kind of like a midday test. So it has the personalized insights, which you get the test back, you get all the results back, and it's personalized to you, obviously. And then we can go over one-on-one with you and chat about your results and kind of have an over comprehensive look at how you're doing. And so then the empowerment portion, it allows you to take charge of your health by understanding your hormones, because knowledge is power, and the Dutch testing puts that into your hands. And it's very important to understand the female cycle, especially because it's different for everyone. And, you can read it in a book, you can read how this is supposed to happen, but it's very different for each individual female, especially. And
it just gives you clarity.
Yeah.
I feel like it's like it's kind of, I don't know.
It really helps you get to know yourself.
Yes, 100%. Or like understanding like you're not crazy. Like you, just because it's happening to you does not mean it's normal. So again, it gives you that clarity into how your system is functioning and like maybe why you're feeling the way that you are. So last thing that we have for you guys is just some resources. So some of these books were the books that we read that really helped us understand our cycles a lot better and just understanding hormones and things like that. So It Starts with the Egg is fantastic, especially if you are looking to conceive. So it just talks about how the health of the egg is crucial in understanding fertility. The next one is The Fifth Vital Sign. So again, just talks about how, we have vital signs that doctors think are super important. And I don't understand why we don't consider our cycle a vital sign, but that book is really helpful for that. Woman Code is fantastic. That's the first book that I read that got me into hormone work. So that was amazing. Do Less by Kate Northrup is great. Well Adjusted Babies is phenomenal. And then the Period Repair Manual is great as well.
Yeah.
All right. Well, as always, if you guys have any questions, feel free. You can find us or follow us on Facebook, Instagram, go to our website, reach out to us in any way, shape, or form. We are happy to help and just get you guys onto a better path as far as your hormones and your life.
Yes.
Because really that's what it all comes down to.
Yeah. I know that we, threw a lot of information at you in quite a short period of time. So yeah, if any questions come up as you're going through this, feel free to jot them down and send us a quick message. Or if you have any questions about, different things that you can do on your own or supplements that you think that you might want, or if you're interested in doing the Dutch test.
Yeah. Happy to help. See you guys later.
See ya.